In 1911, a man by the name of Edward Pulaski invented a tool that has become synonymous with the Forest Service and wildland firefighting, and that is the Pulaski. What Ed did was he took a traditional axe and mated it to an Oz head or a grubbing head and combined those two to form what we have here is the FSS Pulaski, still used commonly today. And is so popular is this tool and such a symbol of the Forest Service that many of the guys and gals that retire from the Forest Service are issued one of these chrome-plated as a commemorative plaque. So, a little story, a little history on Ed. Ed was a wildland firefighter as well, and had become quite a celebrity and famous for saving 45 men by leading them into a mine shaft at the Big Blow Up, a huge fire. I believe it was in Idaho. All of his crew he saved except for 5, which refused to obey his orders and left the cave in which they were sheltering in and ultimately died because of that decision. So, what do we have? What do I have for you today? How could this tool be improved upon? How could something that is so iconic, who would have the courage to mess with a tool of this caliber and renown? Well, you guys have seen me playing around with this for the last couple weeks. A new take on the traditional FSS Pulaski. What we have here is a tool that was produced or being produced now by the Rogue Tool Company, the Rogue Pulaski. You can see here a lot of similarities, but quite a few differences. What do we have? We've got an axe head, we've got a grubbing feature, but much wider, much different tool. So how did the two stack up? Well, today we're going to find out. A lot of similarities you're going to see here. Just take a look at the cutting edges. We have here the traditional FSS Pulaski. We have the Rogue Pulaski, very similar. Tapers, a little bit different there, but the main thing, and the thing that I noticed right away when using, is the grubbing feature. You can see here the Pulaski, the FSS, has a very small, much smaller grubbing implement, where the Rogue tool has a much wider with cutting edges front and on the sides. When I first looked at these together, I thought, whoa, these are not very similar because obviously the Rogue tool is going to be much heavier. And much to my surprise, when I put them on the scales, they're almost identical in weight. They're just off by a few ounces. And that surprised me because when using this tool, it seems heavier, it seems bigger, it doesn't seem as nimble, but it's more of an illusion than anything else because the simple matter of fact is the weight is very similar. The handles are a bit different too. You can see the regular FSS will have a straight handle, where the Rogue Pulaski is a bit longer by about 3.5 to 4 inches and has more of an Oz-like handle or a curved handle to it. So what we're going to do today is we're going to put these two tools to the test, a head-to-head competition, so to speak, or a test on which is the most effective cutter. It's hard to It would be hard to improve upon a tool like this that has stood the test of time and is so beloved by so many people and is such a wonderful design. But the question is, can this be improved upon? And I have used both extensively as a wildland firefighter and having my own woodlot that I maintain and use. I build a lot of trails and fire lines, and I've used both extensively. So let's put these to the test, some timed events in varying different type of ground conditions, and find out which is the better tool. Right, so for our first test, what I'm going to do is the FSS and the Rogue, FSS on the right, Rogue on the left. I'm going to take 50 swipes through very similar ground here. We've got soft dirt, grass, we've got some small bushes and such, and we'll see, with the same effort applied, which one gives us the better results. So first off, the FSS, 1 to 50. 50. So in our 50 strokes here with the FSS, what did we accomplish here? Got about 5.5 paces of trail or fire line built. You can see here a good 12-14 inches across, cleared down pretty much everything out, and that is the result. So we'll take another 50 with a rogue right next to it, and we'll see if there's a difference. Here we go. All right, so what do we learn here? With the same 50 strokes, we got 7.5 paces with the Rogue Pulaski, 5.5 for the FSS. I did run into a little branch here I had to cut. It was a little bit extra work. And I did run into some Oregon grape here, which slowed me down as well. What I did learn is the FSS took a little bit more effort because I was moving so much more dirt. You can see that the pile of debris there at the head of the trench is a little bit greater than it was with the Pulaski, but I was able to do more work, even with the additional obstructions that I didn't have on the FSS. So that's kind of an interesting test right there. Next, we'll see which one is the best chopper. Now we're going to do the chopping test. We've got a small dug fir, about 4 inches in diameter there, something typical that you would run across a trail or a fire line. On the right hand side, we'll start with the FSS. On the left, and we'll see how many strokes it takes at maximum effort to cut through this fir log. Ooh, 30 strokes. 30 strokes to beat the FSS. Let's see how the Rogue Pulaski does. Ooh, the handle is longer, and I have to stand back further than I'm accustomed to with a standard axe. One thing right off the bat is it's very sticky. And still I'm having trouble with the standoff. And the sticking is certainly a problem with a loose log. Seventeen strokes. 17 strokes versus 30 strokes. Why is that? Well, there's several things that cause that. First off, the FS or the Rogue tool is thinner, and therefore it penetrates deeper and goes further through the wood. That comes at a cost. As you saw, it has a tendency to be a little bit more sticky. That has not been an issue for me when cutting roots, things that are supported and not bouncing all over the ground that you want to roll when you try to unstick the Pulaski. It did play into this, cutting a loose log on the ground. So everything is about compromise. The reason why the FSS doesn't stick is it has more of a wedge to it, more of a taper, but it doesn't bite as deep. So it's all, again, all about compromises. And then another factor, it seems to me, why the Rogue cut so much quicker, 17 strokes instead of 30, was its longer handle. With that longer handle, I get more leverage, just like the reason why we put a pipe on a cheater bar. We can actually push it harder. With that extra 3 inches, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it was enough to be able to cut that log in half in almost half the time. So that's really an interesting test to me. What else? Effort. What was my impression? Chopping. I had some trouble with the Rogue tool because I'm used to a predetermined axe length. My axe handles are essentially all the same size, and I use them and I'm accustomed to that length. I kept over chopping or over cutting with the Rogue because that extra 3 inches I'm not used to. That's not a fault of the tool, it's just a matter of getting used to it. I haven't cut with this tool near as much as the other one. Even though they are essentially the same weight at the head, this tool feels heavier. It feels bulkier, it feels like it takes more effort, and it's a little bit more unwieldy. However, it chops faster. So again, we're back to compromises. So what do we do from here? Let's take both tools and see if we can't cut a line, do another 50-stroke test in a completely different type of soil, rocks, and we'll see which one comes out ahead on that test.
So you're dying to know who came out on top. Before we go to part 2, now's the time for you to click the thumbs up and to comment. It keeps me motivated, it shows me who's out there, gives me ideas for the direction of the channel, and it's your obligation as a subscriber. You have responsibilities, you have a mission here. I produce the best content I can, and in return, you comment and subscribe. So, is that direct? Direct enough? So part 2, I'll get into the final test and my takes on it, which one I would choose and why, and a little bit of philosophy on that. So don't miss the conclusion of this riveting series. So on to part 2, and we'll see you over there in the next video.